So there's kind of this prevailing sentiment on the internet that Asians are usually kind of based and we don't really play the identity politics game. That's not universally true, of course, because there actually are some pretty noteworthy counterexamples out there. Like really, really noteworthy. But if there are any ways in which our Asian heritages have influenced our politics, and made us at least more right-leaning and libertarian, I would say that it would be the following reasons. First of all, Maoist China was a fucking nightmare. And for the sake of our grandparents who fled the communist regime, as well as for our grandparents who weren't so lucky, we better fucking remember that. My dad never talked about this much until recently, but having been to China myself, I can say that the Asian people who don't appreciate all the rights and freedoms that we have here in the West, that aren't available under totalitarian regimes back east, are just not paying attention. Freedom is absolutely worth fighting for. The second reason why I think being Asian has at least made us so averse to the progressive movement is that we recognize that we're probably next on the chopping block. After the progressives cut the white men down to their knees, they're going to look at other successful groups who don't kowtow or pay lip service to their ideological doctrine. And guess who they're going to find? They're going to see all the greedy capitalist Chinamen with all their patriarchal math skills and command us to bend the fucking knee. Well, the progressives can get fucked, because all I want to do is be able to succeed or fail on my own merit and not to be punished for doing well in a free market where exchanges are voluntary. Asians are going to be the next scapegoats of the entitled SJW class if progressives have their way. Anyway, I think it's kind of interesting how our upbringings and histories shape who we are. We're not just interchangeable beings that can be molded like clay. A lot of that molding actually takes place during childhood. And once our personalities are set, our natural tendencies become pretty difficult to change. That's also why I'd say that our differences are a little more than skin deep. I wouldn't expect someone who grew up with two Chinese parents to have a similar childhood to someone who grew up with two Italian parents. Yeah, I mean, I get it that we're all individuals and we're all unique in our own ways, regardless of skin color and culture, but all of this stuff is still a factor. I didn't grow up in a vacuum. Every major event in my childhood influenced who I eventually turned out to be today. And to say that growing up with more traditional Chinese parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles didn't influence the way I think, it just wouldn't be accurate. And I think that's why culture matters, and I think that's also why family matters. I mean, sure, any environment can actually produce people who are conservatives or libertarians, just like any environment can produce people who are progressives. But certain environments and certain cultures are definitely more conducive to producing certain types of people. The two of us don't want the world to produce any more socialist totalitarians who want to micromanage every aspect of every individual's life just so that they can usher in their own utopian vision. And so we're going to speak out wherever possible. What we're trying to do here is influence culture, to encourage the flourishing of cultures where people respect private property rights and individual freedoms, and discourage and ridicule cultures that don't. I think that'll actually help the situation. And for me at least, the cultures that seem to produce the kinds of people that I like seem to be rooted in Western classical liberalism, traditional family values, and capitalism. And that's why I'll continue to be an advocate for these things. Peacefully, and not at gunpoint, of course. Not yet, at least.
Okay, so I'll start this time. That's going to be new. So today's topic is going to be, what do other countries think of this whole social justice, progressive bullshit we have going on?
Right.
What the rest of the world thinks.
Yeah. And we're going to start with what we know China thinks, or at least a part of the Chinese internet thinks.
Yes.
Because they've coined a new term
known as the white left.
Yeah, 白左.
I can't say that.
Which literally translates to white left. And they use this term to make fun of basically Western leftists.
Well, to be more specific, they use that term to make fun of anyone who they perceive to be pursuing the ideal left to idiotic lengths.
Yeah.
I think like this term is actually, from what I understand, it is getting quite popular.
Well, because China has a censored internet, so I can't imagine like too many people there are aware of the culture war. I mean, a lot of them probably don't care anyway about what's going on in America. A lot of normies. But I think...
Do you think the population of the internet who is willing to get the VPNs and all that,
Yeah.
those are our type of people? Are we similar in some sort of
Yeah.
manner?
I definitely think that there is a subculture in China that's kind of like our 4chan. There are a bunch of weaponized autists.
Yeah.
They're using their VPNs, they're shitposting all over the internet, and they're aware of what's going on around the world. And this group of people are the ones who coined the term Baizuo. And it's a term that's been popularized enough to reach our
us.
shores. Yeah.
Like, we have absolutely no connection to these
Even
people.
Tucker Carlson talked about it on Fox News.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Okay, what can we take away from this? Let's start with you. Like,
Yeah, so one thing that makes me a little bit saddened is that some westernized Asians, like second-generation immigrants, who had the traditional...
second?
Yeah, just like us, exactly.
Okay.
But some of us who had the traditional Asian parents, who grew up with the traditional values, such as your family is the most important thing in the world, some of us have turned full SJW. I don't know why it saddens me, but it just does. Because I think, people with a similar upbringing to me should kind of like share some similar beliefs, but these people are complete opposite. It's like work ethic, family values, that kind of stuff.
I have to actually go off on a tangent, but this is very important.
Okay.
I think I finally understood why this progressivism thing puts me off so much. It just occurred to me.
Okay.
We're having a very important moment here, but I just had an epiphany.
Yeah.
So, my dad always explained to me that he brought me here. He realized he had to, he must leave Hong Kong because he has a son now. He will not allow his son to grow up in a communist country once Hong Kong gets taken back by the Chinese.
Yeah.
He refused because he grew up in a communist boarding school when he was young. What happened there, he does not talk about. I don't know what happened there, but the result is he has this intense hatred for communism. He hates communists.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he would go as far as to kick them out of helicopters, but he will not deal with them.
Yeah.
So we moved here before I was really self-aware. But he always told me it's like, we moved here to be Canadians. We're not Chinese anymore. I brought you here because I believe this is a good place to grow up and to live in. The Western world is a great place. But now, we see progressivism and the left trying to fight against the place that I was brought here to live in. I don't think my dad, even when he passed away, realized that, the place we live in now is no longer the place he brought me here to live in.
Yeah.
And part of why I'm so put off by this is no, this is not what we want.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of immigrants came here thinking that this was the traditional American dream.
But that dream is dead. That dream is long dead because of Marxism.
Yeah.
And until the day I give up and leave Canada, I will always fight Marxism.
Yeah.
To a reasonable degree. I'm not willing to die for it, but I'd rather just leave.
Yeah. One of the things my parents were most concerned about when I was becoming a white person, and I say white person as in a white leftist type of person.
Not because you were going through the Michael Jackson survey.
Yeah. But they were worried that I wasn't going to value family very much. Because they saw... One thing that Chinese people always criticize white people about
is that they don't value family.
It's they're very loose with their sex.
Yeah.
And it's they don't give a shit about raising families. It's just sex, 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 pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. My mom always says, this is one of her most famous phrases, She's always oh, they're always so loose.
Yeah, I feel like my family probably had the same...
Yeah.
We don't talk about it, but we probably have similar opinions.
Yeah. So, I think it's clear, Asian culture is more conservative in that aspect. And they look at what, especially the left, because Christian conservatism is also the same, in that sense. But they look at the modern progressive movement.
And they're just what are these people doing? They're destroying the country, but for what?
Yeah. And also the other thing, those people there are laughing at what America is doing. But also, I think the Chinese government itself is probably laughing to the bank at what the West is trying to do to its culture.
It's like, why? Look, we're not going to criticize you because that's bad for you and good for us.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, America, go ahead and destroy yourself from the inside. We don't have to lift a finger, and we're going to be the world's #1 superpower after that.
Look, China is diametrically opposed to the U.S.
Yeah.
There's this thing where, like, international cooperation, like, nobody gives a fuck about that. That's just for, like, that's just for show.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, well, like, Trudeau's just gonna piss away all your money and give it to us? Like, of course we love him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, that's what I think. It's like, well, everyone knows what's going on, but they're like, well, our self-interest comes first.
Yeah.
And China is still willing to be